Tell me about Islamophobia that you've experienced in your life.
I mean, it's been like my entire life. Like I was just like, 11 years old when 9/11 happened. And, we would have like fire drills and stuff at school. And every single fire drill, I would get my hijab pulled down from someone behind me as a kid. And I didn't realize it was that big of a deal. It was like annoying because like, we're kids and people do that. I didn't realize the reason behind it was, like hatefulness or whatever, or just like whatever. I thought it was just kids teasing kids like they do because, middle school people are always bullying each other. But I wore the hijab at the time. Actually, I started wearing it after 9/11. Like it was my choice. Like I did it as I was like, I had just turned 12 and I started wearing it like after New Year's, like as a New Year's resolution. And then I wore it until I was like 28. So
What age do people typically start wearing them?
Usually, well, I mean, if you were like, kind of conditioned to like, be accustomed to wearing it, usually like when girls hit puberty, they would start wearing it like right after that.
So it's kind of like a bar bat mitzvah.
Yeah, it's like a sign that you're a growing woman, like you're getting into it, you're a young lady. But also it's, that's just the outward expression of like our faith, right? And because as a Muslim woman, like wearing a hijab, I was visibly Muslim. Like guys get away with it, right? They'll change their name to Mo or Sal or whatever, and like they'll get away with it. But like as a Muslim woman, wearing a hijab, there's no hiding it. And so I grew up with like a lot of people, especially it was strangely more common during the Obama era, where random people would come up to me to debate me on my faith, just like really aggressively. I remember sitting in a cafe minding my business, and this guy with like big beefy arms comes up to me. He's just like antagonizing me and just like, oh yeah, you believe in Allah? Is that your God? Like I'm just like, it's the same God, and I'm like literally just trying to mind my business, and he wants to debate me. And it was a lot. Like people would do this often.
So do people look down on you're right, we don't want to speak of this, but do people look down on the guys named Mohammed who changed the name to Mo? Is that looked down upon?
It's like a, I guess, inside joke type of thing. But, I personally, I think of it as like a cop out. It's just like rep your whole name. Like, why are you hiding it? I mean, there's a element of just like, wanting to fit in, socially with your group of friends or whatever. And, that could be like a cute pet name between you guys, like, what up, Mo? But like, I think going by Mo, I mean, it's not my place to say because I'm not in that person's shoes, but at the same time, it's just like, just be proud of yourself. Why are you hiding it? It took me a really long time to, like get used to not anglicizing my name because other people would anglicize it. I used to let people call me Annam, Annam, and I had to correct people by the time I was like, I think literally when I was like 30, I started finally correcting people. I was just like, no, it's Annam,
Annam.
Annam. And then people would still be like, Annam, Annam. And I'm just like, no, it's Annam. Like I would have to stop them and just correct the whatever emphasis they were putting on the wrong syllable or whatever, or too much emphasis on one syllable.
It's the Friends line, yeah. The emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Yeah.
Are there Annams who go by like Anna or something like that, like the Mo cop out? Okay.
I've never heard that. I've never heard that. Although a lot of times online, because my Instagram handle is Annam Laughs.
Yeah.
People will think that it's Anna M Laughs, and if they want to like debate me or something, they want to respond to me. They'll be like, "Yeah, Anna." Actually, that I'm just like, that's not even. I'm not even gonna bother. Like there's no point in correcting people at that point. But yeah, it took me. So I don't blame them, but at the same time, like because it did take me a really long time to get used to not anglicizing my name. Yeah.
What was it like in college? Where did you go to college, and what was it like? Because you grew up in Brooklyn,
Yeah.
so this originally was stuff we were talking about was in Brooklyn.
Yeah. I went to Murrow for high school. I went to Brooklyn College for my undergrad. Went to a city college for my grad school degree, which I never finished. But I did predict everything that's happening right now. Because I was learning international relations, and I predicted that in a democracy where like the middle class is being depleted, the foreign policy will increase. I mean, the heads of state will increasingly use terminology to like attack one group of people to like, create a scapegoat or whatever, to distract people from what's really happening to them economically. And when you get more and more abstract with who the enemy is, the closer you get to being a fascist state.
Oh, that's, yeah.
Yeah.
It is weird, yeah. They were trying to, I remember before 9/11, they were like kind of saber-rattling with China a little bit. And I remember on 9/11, my roommate was like, oh, it might be the Chinese. We've been having some trouble with them.
I remember that. I remember growing up and my dad was just like, you need to start learning Chinese. Like, I was like 9 or 10. I'm like, okay, why? Because, China's going to take over. That was the running theory about like global politics, is that China was going to take over. China was going to be the next big thing. And look at where they are now. Yeah. Everybody loves China. They're doing so good. Yeah. Yeah,
I'll probably cut this out, but the guy who attempted to do the shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner took the train, and it took him like 58 hours. If he was in China, he wouldn't have wanted to assassinate the president, but also it would only take him like 5 hours or something.
That's actually hilarious. Yeah. That was so strange. I mean, that's clearly a psyop, but anyways. But in terms of Islamophobia, it was so crazy because majority of the Islamophobia I faced was in the Northeast. It was in New York. It was in Connecticut because, I moved to Connecticut when I got married. And I was living there for 3.5 years. One time I was just not used to like people being so friendly in Connecticut, but because I wore hijab at the time, I thought they were overcompensating. I didn't understand their like values and they're like waving high I could be like walking down the road because they didn't have streets there. We could be walking down like a road on a hill somewhere, on a mountain somewhere, and people driving by would like wave.
Oh, damn.
And I thought that was so bizarre. And like they would be extra friendly on like the line at the, the cashier or whatever. I was not used to that coming from, being born and raised in New York. And so I used to be like really hesitant, thinking that like, oh, they're overcompensating for their racism or there's something like that white guilt thing where they're just like, oh, let me be really friendly to this hijabi lady.
But some of them are just friendly. Yeah, that's happened to me. Yeah, you're out in the boonies and then people are nice to you. And it's like, I prefer it, but it does take some getting used to.
But then I had like moments where it was just like my hairstylist, I was trying to be blonde at one point. My hairstylist was like telling me, oh, I've worn a sari before. Like out of nowhere, unprompted, just just telling me that she's worn a sari before. And I'm like, okay, good job. I don't know what to do with that information. Like
that's Hindu, right?
Yeah. Well, it's part of some South Asian cultures, not all. Like I'm Punjabi and Kashmiri, and I don't think our people normally wear that. That's not our traditional garment. Like we have different traditional garments, and like there are people in like other parts of Pakistan and lots of areas of India that wear the sari, and that's their traditional garment. But that wasn't like what I know that my people, because I'm half Kashmiri, half Punjabi. And so ethnically, that doesn't really belong to me traditionally because it's part of South Asian culture in general. Like people do indulge in that. Like I've worn a sari before, but that's not like something where I'm just like, oh, wow, you enjoyed my tradition. Good, congratulations. I was just very much like, where's that coming from? Why are you just telling me this information? But
so what's the difference between them? Yeah, I mean, I could Google image them. The hijab and the sari.
The sari is just like it's a dress. It's like you wrap it around. It's like a skirt, and then it comes. It's one giant piece of fabric, and you drape it, and you fold it, and you fold it, and you fold it, and then you drape it around you, and it comes over your chest, and sometimes people wear it over their heads too. But the hijab is different in every culture, right? Hijab could be like the triangle hijab that you wear like that, like a skirt. You know how people have the little, how it's very, very Gen Z to wear the little, I don't know what they're called. They're like a handkerchief scarf that the people just wear like around their...
I'm both an elder millennial and not up on the...
I don't know what the name for it.
Technology. Yeah.
I don't know what the name for it is.
That's cool that the Gen Z has like a new hijab.
No, that's not a hijab. It's just what other, like Gen Z in general, Muslim, non-Muslim, doesn't matter. They wear like that little handkerchief looking thing on their head. It's like a headband. I don't know.
No, Claudia, who I interviewed, who's a Cuban against the blockade in Cuba, was wearing one.
Yeah, it's very common. It's very like trendy or whatever.
She's Gen Z.
Okay, yeah. I could never get used to it. I always feel weird wearing that. But no, the triangle hijabs are like a bigger version of that. And I used to wear that as a kid. And I don't know where I got that from. I think it was just like on Atlantic Avenue. They have like all these stores and stuff that sell hijabs like that. And that's what I grew up wearing as a kid. It was like the pharaoh look where you just pin it over here and just two long strings coming down. Yeah. And then as I grew older, like I wore it in different ways, but like every culture has their own version. Like Pakistani women usually just wear like a a shawl, like they just kind of wrap it around, or like they have this thing called a dupatta that like comes with the outfit. They either keep it on their neck or just on their chest area, or sometimes they wrap it all around their head, but still leaving like a little bit of hair out. Like Pakistani like conservative culture is not like a super like Muslim conservative. Like they're traditionally conservative. They're not like they won't cover their whole entire, they won't cover like they won't cover until only their face is showing. They'll leave a little hair out. They'll make sure they still look like, you know, a little stylish or whatever. And then like, you know, Turkish people have their style. Iranian women have their style. They always have like a little bit of hair coming out too. Very similar to Pakistanis in that way. So like everybody has their own way of wearing it. Like if you go into African countries, they have their own styles of wearing it. Some people turn it into just like a turban or whatever. So hijab could look like anything. The point of it is to cover for, you know, in obedience of God, because God commanded that. So
yeah, Judaism has that with the kippah on top.
Yeah.
Or yarmulke. We called it a kippah in Hebrew school.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
The bobby pins.
Did they like mess up your hair?
I think my hair's always was met. Yeah.
Okay. I would always worry about like hair breakage or something like that.
Yeah. Like now my hair's long on purpose. In grade school it was long by accident. I didn't really know what I was doing with it or how to style it. I mean, I'm having a little trouble today.
I mean, it looks fine. I think you look very you look very Muslim.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I compare. So I have the same beard as some Bangladeshi people. Yeah.
Actually, because they dye their hair. Actually.
Oh, they dye it. My
yeah.
Oh, okay.
They dye it with henna, and so it looks orange.
Yeah.
No,
Sharif didn't tell me. Me and Sharif saw them when we were canvassing.
Oh, okay, got you. No, they use henna to dye their beard hair because the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, used to dye his hair sometimes. So they do
Muhammad had an orange beard?
I don't know if it was orange. Maybe it was dark. I don't know what it looked like. But
they didn't have color.
But they do it because it's sunnah, which is like we try to follow the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, as much as possible, and that's just something that men can do that women can't. So because we don't.
Oh, that's so nice.
Beards.
I didn't know he did. Yeah, that he might him having a red beard is cool. I know you don't don't depict him, but what are some major incidents of Islamophobia that have happened?
So I was gonna say in Connecticut actually. One time in the city when I was riding the subway, I think I was coming back from work and I had some food in my hand and I wanted to throw it out in the garbage so bad. I hate holding on to trash. Right. So I waited until like the train car was directly, like the doors would open and there was a trash can in front of me and then I could jump back into the train car and I wouldn't have to like worry about like missing my train home. So I like jumped out through the trash, came back in, and this guy with like a briefcase in his hand, looking like a whole professional, goes to me, "I hope that wasn't a bomb." And he meant that in all seriousness. It wasn't even like a joke or anything. And I giggled a little bit. It was a packed train car during rush hour. And then all of a sudden the color started rushing to my face. And I'm like, I felt so embarrassed. I'm like, oh, I just realized what happened. Like I didn't really process what he said to me. And I didn't even think of it as like a joke. I just, like, oh, you're talking to me and I'm just laughing because I don't know what you just said. Like slow to process, like what is it called? The audio processing delay, whatever. And I felt so embarrassed the entire ride that he was on, and even after he left, because all the people that were on the train car were still there and they heard that exchange and nobody said anything. And it was just so disheartening. And this was during Obama era. Also during the Obama era, apparently all over New York City, I can't believe this feels like a fever dream, but all over New York City, all the buses and trains had like posters and signage that said, a giant all across the bus on the outside, on the inside, trains all on the inside. It was like calling Muslims savages. Like it was absolutely insane, saying that like we're not compatible with civilization, with human civilization. I see that on conservative social media still a lot. I'm gonna look that up. I don't know if that was under Bloomberg or De Blasio. That seems like something it was under Bloomberg. Yeah. It was definitely under Bloomberg because when De Blasio got into office, I moved to Connecticut, so I know that wasn't during that time. So that was a huge like time in my life. That was like in my early 20s. Like, you know, that's a time where you're just like socially conscious and you're finally like a person and your brain is fully developed. And I'm like, this is so insane to experience every single day because I use the train and bus every single day to go to work, to go to school, whatever, to exist in the city, and to have to be confronted. And then, you know, like every single day walking up the steps, there would be like, if you see something, say something. If you see something, say something, everywhere, in the announcements, everywhere. And I actually just passed by, I was in 42nd Street, Times Square station, and I was going on to the 1-2 train area, and the steps didn't have those words anymore. And I felt this sigh of relief after like 20 something years of like, oh, it's finally gone. If you see something, say something specifically targeting Muslims, right?
Yeah, I still do see those signs sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure it's yeah, I was like, Fred, it's up to you to help. Yeah, I was
But
like
I
feeling
used to take those.
deputized.
I used to take those steps all the time to and from work. So those steps specifically haunted me for years. And like when I saw them gone recently, I was like, I can breathe now.
Zoran did it.
Yeah, maybe he did it. I don't know. But so that was one major incident in New York that happened that stuck with me. And then
that was that on the Metro North or the subway? That train.
That was in New York City.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, on the subway.
Yeah.
Okay.
With the dude with the briefcase and everything. Yeah. And then in Connecticut, two incidents that stuck out to me is when I was working on my master's thesis, trying to finish it, never finished it, but I was trying to work on my master's thesis. I was sitting in a Starbucks cafe. We're boycotting that now, but I was sitting in a Starbucks and there was this group of runners that would come every morning and sit like across from me or whatever. And one morning, because I was wearing the hijab at the time, one morning, this one white guy, it was all white people, obviously, it was Connecticut. He said very loudly to his group, man, waterboarding sure sounds like a ton of fun, or something along that line about waterboarding, like really loudly, so within earshot of me. And I was just like so disgusted. I looked up and he was like looking at me. And it was really like disgusting. This one lady at that same Starbucks kept giving me bacon. Like whenever I didn't order a bacon item, like she would have like bacon in it. So that was weird. So that was all kind of like in the same, time period and location. And then another incident in Connecticut, my neighbor, she's a teacher, middle school teacher in Bristol, and she asked me to come to her classroom and be like a guest speaker to talk about Islam. She wanted a real life Muslim to talk about Islam. This is post Trump. So Trump had just become president. I think it was like a year in. And she asked me to come and speak in her classroom. She made flyers and stuff so the parents know that like, oh, we're having this enriching experience for our kids. It's a social studies class, so they're learning about world religions. They're going to learn about Islam from a real Muslim. And part of her agenda was to like nip in the bud any sort of racist rhetoric and stuff like that. But they're seventh graders, and they had more questions about me as just like, oh, when did you get married? How did you get married? And what's your like they had more personal questions for me as like as a human being, which goes to show like how innocent kids are. But also like they loved me as a guest speaker and as a teacher, because my lesson was like an anti-bullying lesson. It was more like, hey, look at these people. Can you guess which of them, all these brown people, can you guess which of them are Muslim? None of them were Muslim. They were Jewish, Christian, Buddhist, Jain, etc. And then I had another slide where I showed people of all these celebrities and all people of different colors and races and things like that. I was like, can you guess what each person's religion is? And they were all Muslim. And like, it was just to show that, like, you can't judge a book by its cover, and, like, you should be kind to anyone regardless. And so it was like an anti-bullying lesson mixed with, like, the basic stuff they learn, like, in social studies anyways, 5 pillars, stuff like that. Stuff everyone should know about each other's religions, She invited me back that same year, at the beginning of the school year. This is when she made the flyers. She didn't make the flyers beforehand. This time she made flyers, and the flyers got posted in a Facebook group with a bunch of moms in it, and they were not having it. They protested me coming to the classroom. They said that I was going to like proselytize their kids. I was going to convert them to Islam, and like that's not how Islam works. First of all, like I don't know what they thought I was going to do in the classroom. Like kids are barely paying attention in the classroom. Why in the world would they just be like, all right, now I'm going to take the Shahada, like make it make sense. But they were so scared of me even giving information that the superintendent ended up canceling the event for the school. And it was really disheartening, and it was all over the news. All these, I still have, I deleted my Facebook, but I had like the Facebook messages from like Fox News, CNN, NBC, like everybody was contacting me because they wanted my statement. I never gave a statement because my ex-husband wouldn't let me, which sucks because I would have loved to speak on my own.
Care, great.
Yeah, thank you. Care Connecticut contacted me, the Council of American Islamic Relations, and it was just, we had helicopters and vans in front of our house, and nobody was answering the door for them. But like, it was very like, all because we wanted to make sure that the next generation wouldn't be racist, and they would like have basic information about another group of people so they wouldn't become like hateful towards them. That's literally the only intention behind that. And then there was like a counter protest. So there was like lots of moms that came out that were just like, no, I want my kid to learn about this. I want them to be well-rounded, da, 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 da. So that was heartening, actually. That made me feel a lot better. But overall, the experience was just like, it was pretty traumatizing.
Yes, they're kind of treating Islam like it's a contagious disease.
Yeah, like really. And it's so crazy because once I got divorced, I moved to Kentucky because I didn't want to be around people like pitying me and stuff for the divorce. And so I moved a little further away. And the reason I picked Kentucky was actually during a recruiting weekend for a teaching program that I was going to become a teacher there. The program invited me to come for like a weekend. And as soon as I stepped down in the airport, even like, everyone from the airport to the hotel to people in the bars that we were like, having our events at, they were so down to earth. And it was the first time in my life, even with a hijab, that I did not feel like I stuck out like a sore thumb. I just felt like I was part of the crowd. I was part of the group. I was in the group and I was part of them. And I wasn't like on the outskirts,
And this is at a blue city in Kentucky.
In Kentucky, yeah, it's a red state. We say it's a blue city it's a blue dot in a red sea type of situation.
No, they're very nice, those places. Versus like the rich suburbs in the blue states are much more conservative.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is what Connecticut
exactly.
is.
And so it was like literally the first time in my life that I felt like just a person, a person, and not like a fringe, to be a fringe. Being to be like feared or I don't know, ostracized. Cause it's not like in New York City, I wasn't part of any groups, but I was mostly only part of Muslim groups and mostly only part of, my own culture and my own people and things like that. I had friends from other backgrounds, but they were never close friendships. They were never anything beyond just in the classroom or in a school club or something like that.
Yeah, the way I learned about Islam, it wasn't a Jewish school anymore, but it was just like an old white guy with like notes from 20 years ago telling us facts about Islam that he didn't really care about.
Right.
So it would have been better to learn from a real Muslim. There were probably Muslim people in the class too.
Yeah.
But they weren't asked to maybe give their, I don't know if that would have been good. This is pre 9/11, so it was
at school.
Yeah, because by the time 9/11 happened, I was in college.
Yeah.
So this learning about Islam, I mean, in college I learned more real stuff because in college they were a little more in research, the professors, and they were talking about Islam. But in high school, it was just like, I have these global studies notes from 20 years ago. I just read some basic facts about Islam. And like we did Africa in a week and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like just, we're going to focus only on East Asia and then Europe for a year in a 2-year global studies
The way we're
class.
taught about Islam in school is actually like, it makes me want to fight them. It makes me want to fight the Board of Education in every state because like even when we learned it in high school, a friend of mine who was sitting next to me, she was Jewish, and she was just like, wait, if Muslims believe in only one God and Jewish people only believe in one God, isn't that the same God? And isn't it like the same religion or something like that? And the teacher got so upset. And I'm sitting right there. So she's like sitting next to me. The teacher's right on top of my head. And I'm wearing hijab. I'm visibly Muslim. And she's just like, no, don't ever say that. Da, 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 da. She got so pissed. It was the most angry I've ever seen her, and I don't think I ever saw her angry before.
And Allah is the Arabic word for God.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
But also,
people probably know that. But
I had someone in the program that I was in Kentucky come up to me and ask me for help when she was making her curriculum. She was also a social studies teacher. I was a science teacher. And she was asking me for my help with like making sure her lesson wasn't going to be like disrespectful in any way. Like in the background of her slides was like the Quran itself, like pages of the Quran. I'm like, that might be disrespectful. But then I looked at her, like the list of objectives that she has to complete as a social studies teacher. And the questions were all like, they were like leading students to conclude that Islam was violent. Do you know what I mean? Like it was
from the state.
Yeah, from the like the you know how like the science standards will be like how did humans impact the environment over time, something like that, and so that'll be like something they have to work on in the unit through other questions. And then with social studies, they had like a big overarching question, and then other questions that they have to answer, in every lesson, every few lessons, and all of the questions were around commerce and it was leading students to believe that Islam was coercing people to follow the faith. And it was like, I put my hands up, like, I'm like, I can't do anything about this. This is so, this is bizarre and incorrect and really like an unfair way of learning about anybody's religion. But yeah.
I wonder what the lesson was on like evangelical Christianity, whatever's dominant.
I don't think they ever learn about that.
Oh, okay, but they probably
I think they just learn about, the basic stuff that we learned about was like Catholicism and then the break into Protestant, with the English church. The only time that's how I learned it was just like with King Henry VIII, because he just wanted to have, more wives. He wanted to be able to divorce. He wanted to be able to divorce his first wife.
Yeah, he wasn't that into Protestant. He was down to have Catholic Church if he was basically the Pope. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, he wasn't. Later, they became a little more Protestant. England is kind of in between.
Oh, I thought the Church of England was the first Protestant.
Oh, no, the Martin Luther guy.
Oh, right. You're right. Yeah. 99.
So it was already going on. And there's a point even when Henry VIII was writing against Luther, but Henry VIII was still loyal.
Oh, okay.
For a little, because his wife was like 40 and he didn't have a son, and they were worried that if a woman tried to take over, there would be a civil war, which had happened 400 years earlier.
Do you know the order? There was 8 wives, right?
There's 6 wives.
6 wives.
I think
divorced, beheaded, died. Divorced, beheaded, survived.
Yeah.
That's what we were talking about.
I may be able to, at least at some point I could name all 6. I read a lot about Henry.
First one was Anne, right?
Okay, let's do this. Okay, wait. Catherine of Aragon. Anne Boleyn.
She's the one that gave him a son, right?
No. She gets beheaded. Yeah.
She gets beheaded. Oops.
His favorite wife is the one who died in childbirth.
Yeah.
Jane Grey, maybe, is her name?
I don't remember. I just remember Catherine.
I think something about, or Jane Grey's his name. Yeah, Jane Grey. And then there's...
Catherine. Anne had Mary, right? Catherine had... Or did Catherine have Mary?
Aragon had Mary, and Mary was Catholic.
Yeah. That's what they call her, Bloody Mary, because she killed people for not being Catholic. Queen Elizabeth was...
Anne Boleyn.
Anne's, okay.
So Queen Elizabeth had a crazy childhood because her mom was beheaded. Yeah. And then she had to kind of sit tight as her brother and then sister were a king and queen, whatever. And then she gets to take power and she's pretty good at it. Yeah. Though, I mean, they screw over the working people, you know. Yeah.
Every time. Okay. This is like a journey. Like, I want to go back to wearing the hijab. Yeah. This was more like a personal journey, like a couple years after my divorce, kind of like still trying to find myself. I was very traumatized from that experience. And so, I had to like work so hard to find myself, and taking it off was part of the process of like finding myself, because I'm outside all the time. So I'm wearing hijab all the time and I'm really not seeing myself. I was so depressed. I was so depressed. I still have videos that I recorded of myself in that state, and it's like heartbreaking to watch back because I don't even recognize that person anymore. But I was going through a lot because of the trauma that I experienced, and like kind of re-experienced every time I would have like panic attacks and flashbacks and things like that. And it just, I came into that marriage wanting a very religious husband and wanting that life for myself. And that's what he was on paper. But behind closed doors, it was something else. And it really conditioned me until I was kind of like, I lost my discipline entirely. Like how I used to pray 5 times a day. I used to fast all my fasts in Ramadan. I used to do the extra fast. I used to go to the mosque all the time. And I enjoyed that. That was what I loved. And I still have a love for that. And, like even now, like I'll try to go masjid hopping with my friends. And
what was that term? What hopping?
Masjid hopping.
Yeah, so going
from there's hundreds of masjids and mosques in New York City. So like, and they're so pretty and they have so much history behind them. So like I will go from like mosque to mosque, either in Ramadan or even during the regular year. It's fun to go during Ramadan because like you get to see different communities all together. Whereas in the regular time of the year, not as many people attend the mosques. Yeah. So you don't get to see the congregations that much. But regardless, it's just nice and fun and relaxing. I've been going with a friend of mine recently we were friends in college when the 99% movement was happening.
Yeah,
what was it called? Occupy Wall Street.
2012.
Yeah. And we were like, fighting back and protesting against like really bad policies at our college, at Brooklyn College and things like that, against the President Gould, who allowed surveillance to happen on campus. The story about like the girl who was an undercover cop pretending to be my friend at Brooklyn College.
It would be good if you would tell it. Yeah, I remember you. I vaguely remember you mentioning it.
So we just jumped from so many topics, but yeah,
that's fine.
I used to be friends with this one girl named Mel. She was like Turkish. She like said she recently became Muslim. Normally Turkish people they're usually born and raised Muslim, but but in this case, I guess she just converted to Islam or something. And like, she would email me a lot and like ask me like where I was going to be at, where my sister was at, where my friends were at. And we would exchange recipes, because I made cheesecake one time for a friend's bachelorette party, and she was in attendance. And when she saw my cheesecakes, I made like mini cheesecakes. She asked me for the recipe, and we would exchange recipes and things like that. And then she made a nickname for me. She called me her little cheesecake.
It gets a little sexual.
What?
Yeah.
Not sexual, but like, it's just like, it was sweet and endearing at the time. And I didn't realize that it was just a way for me to get, feel closeness to this person, so that I could give information. Because I was readily like, oh yeah, we're going to this place next. She was just following around all the Muslim girls trying to frame them. And she did end up framing a friend of mine.
Who was she working for?
She was a cop.
Oh, okay.
She was NYPD. She was NYPD the whole time.
And this is under Bloomberg.
This is under Bloomberg. This is under President Gould of the Brooklyn College. So we were protesting a lot of her policies and stuff. So that friend of mine, she converted to Islam recently. She just became Muslim like 3 years ago, like post, the genocide and stuff. And she saw like the resilience of the Palestinian people, and how evil and, the Zionists were like, attacking hotels. Yeah. Not hotels. Sorry, I said hotels. Attacking hospitals. And yeah, so that's her journey. So I'm not going to speak on it, but it was just nice that we rekindled that friendship. And now like, I will take her to like different mosques around New York City to show her like all the cool spots, like, 96th Street Mosque.
I haven't ever been to a mosque. Now, I avoid going to temples and churches also.
I think you should go just for the historical aspect of it, because they are like a piece of history, a lot of mostly Black history in New York City. Yeah. And so it's just nice. Masjid Ar-Rahman is a big one, and that one is like on the 29th Street, Flatiron District.
I bet the wife would like to go.
Yeah, I think it's good to explore, just to see like the community on the outside too, just like what that's like.
We did go to the oldest temple in like North America when we were in Curacao.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I forget when it was, 1600s or something.
Where is that?
In Curacao. It was a Dutch colony. And it still technically maybe is. But
in the United States?
In the Americas.
In the Americas.
In North America. So Curacao's, it's in the Americas. Curacao's not in North America. I think it's in it's in the Caribbean or South America.
Okay, got you.
It's a tourist thing. If you're a Jew and you go to Curacao, you should go to the old temple. But it is nice anyway for anybody. I should see. And I found out like the prayers are shorter, because in the temple, like when you go on Saturday morning, it's like 3 hours, even 4 if you're Orthodox.
Oh my
gosh.
I
was talking to people after a show, and they were like, oh, the actual praying's only like a couple minutes. And I'm like, because that was the problem. I get like horrible ADHD from the praying.
Yeah.
So if it's shorter, that's more, that's something.
In Islam, it's literally like, if you're just doing the mandatory prayers, you could be done in like 5 minutes or less. And the point is not to rush it or to be done in a certain time period. Like some people, will take their time with each movement, and, what could be like a 5-minute prayer could turn into like an hour, but that's not usually the case. Normally people are like, okay, let me get back to work. Let me get back to what I was doing. Yeah. The point is to take a break. But anyways, the masjid hopping thing came up because, that's something I enjoyed doing for so long. And then after I got married, I was like a different person because of the way that my partner was in our marriage, and, really traumatized me in a way that I don't want to explain on video, but I did leave having less discipline than I started out with. And it shake my faith necessarily, but having a lack of discipline definitely ruins the momentum you have, especially as someone with like undiagnosed ADHD.
Yeah.
Once I lose discipline, it's so hard to get it back. It is so hard to get it back. And so I didn't take off the hijab until about 4 years after my divorce. And that was because, I felt like it was time for me to start exploring myself in a different way and just experiment with my identity in general and just see like who I really am outside of the experience I had been through. And I mean, alhamdulillah, I'm really glad that it's taken me back to Islam in a different way, in a different light. It's never left me, but the perspective I have now is so valuable. And, I'm really hoping, especially after the Epstein files were released, I felt very I feel like I need to cover myself. I feel like I want to be more covered. And I know I'm not like right now, but summer's coming and I'm just thinking about all the outfits I'm going to wear. But at the same time, I'm like, I really do want to cover so badly. And I just went on that trip with my mom to do like a mini pilgrimage. It's called an Umrah, as opposed to the Hajj, which is like done specifically during the month of Hajj.
Okay, which is the mini one.
Yeah, that's the one. So you know how Ramadan is a month on the Islamic calendar?
Yeah.
Hajj is in a month on the Islamic calendar.
Oh, they're different months.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. And that
much.
month is the month that the first like 9 days, people will go and do a pilgrimage there.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit tougher because like you have to do a lot of walking and there's a lot of traveling going on, and people who are richer can afford to have like easier access to some things, which is a little really unfair, but anyways, all that is to say is that, yes, I did take off my hijab because of the journey that I'm on, but, that is something I want to get back to doing. I want to get back to wearing the hijab soon, sooner rather than later, but, it's going to take some working on my, discipline inside and outside. So,
Yeah, that's unfair, the class differences, yeah. Like, if Zoran was running, he'd be like, let's make it fast and free or whatever, yeah.
Zoran running Saudi Arabia.
I guess, mayor of Mecca, yeah.
That would be so funny. Actually, let's try that. Why not? I'm not happy with his backtracking on like Palestine issue, but like.
Oh yeah, if you want to talk about it, that's it. You finished that story, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to talk about with the Zoran campaign? Either I guess after 10/7 Zoran campaign or just modern times that we didn't get to.
I guess with the Zoran campaign, and I know this is so different from everything else we've talked about, but like I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm just like a stickler and I see things like black and white when it comes to these things, when it comes to like certain values. But Zoran backtracking on Palestine was so heartbreaking, and it feels very much like, the NYPD has too much power in the city, that the, Tish being a Zionist and, being the head of NYPD right now. She's commissioner, right? Is that her title?
The police commissioner. Very powerful position in New York.
And like, it almost feels like NYPD is a gang. They're like the mafia. And I know this from experience working with CARE in the past, because anybody who tried to do anything, any sort of research, any sort of investigative work, uncovering something that the NYPD was linked to, they would get death threats. They would get bomb threats. They would get random like things mailed to them. And like, I know that because we would get letters from people who were experiencing that when I was working at CARE and, CARE New York. And knowing that in the back of my head and how they function normally, and having experience being in jail, and seeing cops, mishandling prisoners firsthand, I just know that they are just like impenetrable. And so for them to have like influence over what Zoran can and can't do is definitely in the back of my mind when I'm thinking about like the things that he's backtracked on, the kind of influence he has. Like he's venerated the founder of the Chabad. I don't know if I'm saying right. Chabad, the extremist organization, the extremist Zionist, rabidly racist organization, sect of.
The rabbi. You mean the rabbi from like the 90s?
Yeah. He went and like he wore a kippah and everything. And
he
like,
went to that guy's grave.
Yeah,
I believe.
yeah.
It's weird because I look like that guy kind of. So that guy died in the 90s. They thought he might be the Messiah.
Yeah.
And he was, I think he lived just long enough, like when Netanyahu first got elected, he was able to help campaign a little bit for Netanyahu, where he had just died and his followers were, so he was rabidly Zionist.
So like a year ago, that group's, that group had like a giant, like they had invited Itamar Ben-Gvir.
That sounds right.
And there was like a bunch of Jewish and non-Jewish people protesting his attendance in New York City and just in general. And a bunch of these, this mob of followers, the Chabad followers, I don't know what to call them, Chabadites.
They might call themselves Chabadniks, I think.
Chabadniks?
I think that's a word they like.
That's really, oh my God, that's hilarious. And
it sounds very European.
Wow. The irony. So the Chabadniks were like attacking these people, like physically, they were bleeding and everything. Like they were violently attacked, and not a single person has been arrested. Not a single person has been tried, nothing. Nobody's been held accountable. And it just goes to show like how much, like NYPD and Zionism is, in bed with each other. They're, and then how much power they have over the city, despite Zoran being the mayor. So I don't like to be so critical that I am blinded by reality and, the structures at play here. But at the same time, I wish he would put his foot down and really have a spine like he did in the past when he came to this stuff. Because the narrative is everything. And the narrative that you spin, the narrative that you help, perpetuate, can make or break people's spirit too. Not whether or not it makes a difference in action, right? In helping anyone. It at least lets the people who believe in you know that you have their back. And it feels very much like he doesn't have our back when it comes to certain things. And so, I'm really happy we have that whole deed theft department that was created, the anti-deed theft recently. But but there's certain other aspects that he's really backtracked on that I'm really upset about. So Palestine is one of them. I want to be able to hold him to the fire, when it comes to the things that are important, without like adding to the pile-on that he gets from racists and stuff. And people like there's this thing where I've seen like a lot of politicians that represent huge Jewish communities. They will always perpetuate the idea that like anti-Semitism is a huge problem, and they say it in light of anti-Zionism, and they do it to conflate the two. And so anytime someone says like someone had written like Free Palestine, or I forgot what it was. I think someone had written like Free Palestine on like the steps of like a restaurant that was owned by like a Zionist. And they said, oh, this anti-Semitism needs to stop. And it's just like, they are Zionists. They are not doing anything. Like, I don't, like, so every politician has to do this, like, performance, and it's upsetting that Zoran participates in that. You know what I'm saying? Like, when it comes to these kinds of things. So
they don't give us good Any stats you see, they'll include anti-Zionism in it. So like anti-Semitism, like I want to just see the clean numbers. That
exactly. And there are, and because I've heard people make really racist jokes against Jewish people and things like that. So I know it exists. It's not like it doesn't exist. It's just that when you lump in all the anti-Zionism into anti-Semitism, it just distorts the picture and actually makes it more dangerous for people who are actually experiencing anti-Semitism. Sorry.
Yeah, and the social media apps don't crack down on the real anti-Semitism either. I'm seeing, there's all kinds of stuff. Okay, is there anything you want to say to kind of wrap up?
Things have gotten better in terms of Islamophobia. I feel like so many, like, it's so refreshing to hear white boys say inshallah, to hear Anne Hathaway say inshallah, and like literally everybody Muslim, non-Muslim is like sharing this, like they're so happy about it. It's such a different world that we live in now, post October 7th. I think October 7th and Trump becoming president the second time has really like broken the dam in a way, and people are just kind of like brazenly more progressive and more open-minded and more knowledgeable